Namaste, good evening everyone. My name is Gaurav. It's nice to be with all of you this evening, and also welcome to all of you seeing this online. We do a reading from the book Rays of the One Light every time on Sunday. So I'd like to begin by reading the passage for this Sunday. And this is week 26, the Redeeming Light. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. The book of Isaiah in the Bible, chapter 9, tells us, "The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined." What is this light of which so many scriptures speak? In Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, we read of an early experience the Master had with that light. I was blessed about the age of 8 with a wonderful healing through the photograph of Lahiri Mahashaya. This experience gave intensification to my divine love. While at our family estate in Ichhapur, Bengal, I was stricken with Asiatic cholera. My life was despaired of. The doctors could do nothing. At my bedside, Mother frantically motioned me to look at Lahiri Mahashaya's picture on the wall above my head. Bow to him mentally. She knew I was too feeble even to lift my hands in salutation. If you really show your devotion and inwardly kneel before him, your life will be spared. I gazed at his photograph and saw there a blinding light enveloping my body and the entire room. My nausea and other uncontrollable symptoms disappeared. I was well. At once I felt strong enough to bend over and touch Mother's feet in appreciation of her immeasurable faith in her Guru. Mother pressed her head repeatedly against the little picture. O omnipresent Master, I thank thee that thy light hath healed my son. I realized that she too had witnessed the luminous blaze through which I had instantly recovered from a usually fatal disease. Where my light is, God once told a saint whom the divine light had healed, no darkness can dwell. The divine light, pure, calm, liberating, is the only final cure for every kind of delusion, ill health, emotional grief, and spiritual ignorance. Seek it daily in the silence, in deep meditation. As the Bhagavad Gita says in the 5th chapter, "For whom that darkness of the soul is chased by light, splendid and clear shines manifest the truth, as if a sun of wisdom sprang to shed its beams of light." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. So I have to agree that when I first saw the title of this week's readings, The Redeeming Light, light isn't something we experience or talk about often, so it's a little bewildering to speak about it. But then when you see it in the context of this beautiful story that Kriyanandaji relates of healing, it brought my mind to other instances in the autobiography of a yogi where this same light that in miraculous fashion healed Yoganandaji healed many other people. There was Sri Yukteswar's friend Rama who fell ill, and the doctors again could do nothing. And Sri Yukteswar would run back to Lahiri Mahashaya and said, "Sir, Rama is not doing well." And Lahiri Mahashaya would cheerfully dismiss him and say, "Oh, he's going to be fine." And so he would go back to his friend Rama, see he was deteriorating even further. And this went back and forth a number of times. And every time Lahiri Mahashaya's cheerful attitude was just incomprehensible to Sri Yukteswar. Finally, Rama dies. And Sri Yukteswar, of course, is bereft, and he goes to Lahiri Mahashaya, and he says, Lahiri Mahashaya asks him, I think he knew, he was just playing around, but Lahiri Mahashaya says, "So, how is Rama now?" And Sri Yukteswar, in his emotional state, he says, "Sir, you'll see how he is when you see his dead body." And Lahiri Mahashaya again, he says, Don't get emotional, Priya, which was Sri Yukteswarji's name. He said, sit by me, meditate. And after a number of hours, which, I mean, we can only imagine if you get that advice when someone close to you has died and your guru says, just sit by, don't worry. But that's what he told him. But after many, many hours, Lahiri Mahashaya tells him, Yukteswar, go to Rama's house and take this castor oil and put 7 drops of this oil in his mouth. And this was, beyond him. He said, sir, he's dead. And he said, just do as I tell you. And so he goes to Rama's house and he opens his mouth. There are bereaving relatives there, but he opens his mouth and he starts putting the oil in his mouth. And as the 7th drop touches his lips, he suddenly gets up. And what does he say? He says, I saw Lahiri Mahashay in a blaze of light. And he said, get up and come with Yukteswar to see me. And then they both go run and see him. And again in that book, there is a story of Ramu, who's again a disciple of Lahiri Mahashay. He was blind since birth. He goes to Lahiri Mahashay, says, sir, can you help me? And Lahiri Mahashay again jokes with him. He says, Ramu, someone has connived to put me in a difficult situation. I have no healing powers. But again, through his intercession on the 7th day after his prayer, he again sees a blaze of light, and that same light. And this light, manifesting that healing in such a way. And I want to ask us if that was perhaps just the fortune of a few disciples who got healed in that miraculous fashion, or is that light relevant to you and I in our daily lives? Can we experience it? Can we draw on that light in the same way that these great ones did? And before I go into that, I want to take a 5-minute science quiz here, which was hard for me also to grasp my mind around, so I want to help share the suffering of that. So I have a question for everyone, which is if you passed your 9th and 10th grade science exams, you should be able to answer. But, we see color around us everywhere. There is this blue carpet, Aditya's wearing that nice yellow shirt, somebody's wearing blue, I'm wearing white. Do these colors really exist? I think I should simplify that question, no one's answering. But do these colors seem what they are? Or, as science has discovered now, that the colors we see are not really there, which means that how light works, and I'll just briefly go into this, that when there is light that falls on any object, whether it's an orange, it's a harmonium, it's on this shirt, it can do 3 things. When light falls on an object, it can either pass through an object, which then we say is transparent, like this glass, light passes through it. But in 2 other cases, what light does is it either gets absorbed by the object or it reflects back. And most of the things we see around us work on that principle. Everything actually works on that principle. And this white kurta is not really white. Why? Because when light falls on it, what this kurta is doing, it is absorbing all the colors in that light except for white, and it reflects back white, and our eyes see that reflection and we think this is white. So is that what you also understand? Without going into the details, of course, it is true that this kurta, you can say, no, what are you saying? This kurta does have a physical composition, you can say, or some chemicals, which allow it to reflect that white color, you see. But really, in truth, nothing is what it seems on one level. They are not the colors that they seem. And to further prove that, I want to say that let's imagine this satsang was happening at midnight. There were no lights in this room. It was completely dark outside, pitch black. Would you be able to see the yellow that he's wearing? Pitch black. No. The yellow would still be there. The yellow would still be there. But I wouldn't see the yellow or the blue. It's all black. I'm pointing this out for several reasons. First, to show that everything we see around us is just a play of light and shadow. If tomorrow morning the sun were not to come out, everything, all the colors we are wearing, everything would be drowned in utter darkness. Is that right? Yes, maybe? Okay, it's going good till now, okay. And where is this headed? I'll pick up a thread later, but first of all, I want to just say that with this, science has at least proved that everything reflects light, right? Yoga science is one step ahead, which tells us that not only does everything reflect light, the yogis say everything is light. And a beautiful example of this was given one time in the life of Paramahansa Yogananda when he was in his ashram with a few disciples. And he looked at his disciples and he said, I see all of you as light. He said, the trees, the grass, the bushes, all of you as light. He said, you have no idea how beautiful it all is. Again, he was seeing everything as light, which to our eyes we see as solid. And you might say, what's the big deal? Why should we start seeing everything as light? How is that going to help us? The redeeming light, how does light help us? Well, for one, when you start seeing things not as physical realities of this person and that person, but as light, it dissolves the ego. In a very simple term, Yogananda ji explains. It dissolves boundaries, light has no weight, matter does not exist. Like Swami says, the divine light is the only final cure for ill health. Health does not relate to light. You see, there is no disease in light. For emotional health, for all sorrows, he said divine light is the only cure. And to understand it a little more, how do we experience it? It's nice to talk about it, but how do we start experiencing and drawing this light? And I want to, in this book again, he sprinkled hints here and there on how we can actually see that light. And there are two things that are involved. And first I will go to some specifics, and then I will talk about something that Swami covered in this very reading. And right here in this chapter where Yogananda ji has this experience of samadhi, cosmic consciousness, he comes out and then he's describing his experience. He writes something which I want to read out to all of us. He says, the cosmic vision left many permanent lessons. By daily stilling my thoughts, I could win release from the delusive conviction that my body was a mass of flesh and bones, traversing the hard soil of matter. The breath and the restless mind I saw were like storms which lashed the ocean of light into waves of material forms, earth, sky, human beings, animals, birds, trees. No perception of the infinite as one light could be had except by calming those storms. As often as I silenced the two natural tumults, I beheld the multitudinous waves of creation melt into one lucent sea, even as the waves of the ocean, their tempests subsiding, serenely dissolve into unity. So here he's giving a very direct way to contact that light, which is, he says, if we can quiet the breath and the restless mind, the imagery is just beautiful. He's saying that when the breath and the restless mind are in function, we see everything as we are seeing it right now, as fixed forms. But to him, he's saying these are the waves of creation. And he's saying when you can still the mind and the breath, then he says automatically you see everything not as form, but as that light that he himself was talking about. And he was seeing others as that. Again, in this book, there is a brief episode of when Sri Yukteswar one time goes to see Lahari Mahasaya, and he walks in, and Lahari Mahasaya asks him, Priya, Yukteswar, did you happen to see Babaji as you entered? And Yukteswarji says, no sir, no. And he says, come here. And so he calls him, and Lahari Mahasaya taps him on the chest, and suddenly Yukteswarji sees Babaji by the door in a form of light, not in a physical form, but in a form of light. Does anyone remember what Babaji tells Sri Yukteswar at that time? He says, child, you must meditate more. You could not see me hiding behind the sunlight. I mean, it's nice. I wouldn't want to be told that because there's no concept. But see, that was again a very direct, practical thing. And to my mind, it says, our effort is involved. We have the tools, we have the techniques. That inner communion has been spelled out, so detailed for us. And so our effort is involved through the techniques. And the second aspect, so you can say this was the aspect of meditation or Kriya Yoga. And then the second aspect, which draws light, which draws grace, which draws miracles to us. Because what is a miracle? It's a grace of God, channeled in a particular fashion. what draws a miracle? We were discussing that question in a book study recently. What draws a miracle? And again, in the autobiography, Mahavtar Babaji answers that for us. They've given us all the answers. We just need to read the book enough. And this happens when Lahiri Mahashaya meets him in Ranikhet, gets that wonderful Kriya initiation, comes down, and before going back home, he stops by Moradabad, which is a city where some of his friends are. And as they are chatting, the talk turns to spiritual matters, and his friends say, "Oh, Babu, in this day and age, India is bereft of great saints." And Lahiri Mahashaya, just having come down from this unbelievable experience, he's over-enthusiastic and he starts sharing of his experience in the Himalayas. And his friends kind of put him down. He said, "I think you've spent too much time in those rarefied airs. It's gotten to you." And then what happens? He goes one step further and he says, "If right now I ask my divine guru to come, he will come at this point." And of course, who can deny such a bold claim? And they get excited, and Babaji comes. He goes in a separate room, Babaji comes. But then what does Babaji tell him? He says, "Lahiri, do you call me for a trifle?" But then he says something important. He says, "Truth is for sincere seekers, not for those of idle curiosity." He says, what is there to believe? What is there to believe when one sees something? Then there is nothing to deny. And then he says, supersensual truth is deserved and discovered by those who have overcome their natural materialistic skepticism. Very important words. It's not just the techniques that will get us there, give us that experience of light. This is the other part of it. Those who have overcome their natural materialistic skepticism. What did Christ say in the Bible related to this? Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Or, blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see light, which is a manifestation of God. Which is again emphasizing that purity, that devotion, that openness of heart. What does Master say in that story we read in the beginning? He says that miracle was drawn because of mother's immeasurable faith in her guru. She said, if you inwardly bow, your life will be spared. She did not say, maybe it may be spared, I think it might be spared. Her faith was developed to such a degree that she said, it will be spared, and it was, and that drew that miracle. So both of these things go hand in hand. Our inner practices by which we touch that light, we contact that light, but then the devotion and the faith and overcoming, like Krishna says in the Gita, "O Arjuna, to you who have overcome the carping spirit," again, that skepticism, that doubting, "to you who have overcome that, I reveal the sublime mysteries." So let's think about that for a moment. And finally, that point I want to make is, how do we do that? Because it's nice to say you do that, but I want to make the point that we use the light, this redeeming light that we are talking about, to overcome that carping spirit, to overcome that materialistic skepticism. And how do we do that? And now let's take us back to that first crazy analogy I was giving about the sunlight falling on the trees and nothing has any color, and how is that relevant? So, this tree outside that we see, when sunlight falls on it, friends, not only does it have no color, but it simply reflects light, and that is why we see the green in it. It changes its shade of green during the day, does it not? In the early morning, at dawn, when the sunlight is softly coming in, the green is a soft green. At noon, when the light is intensely falling on this tree, the leaves appear to be a bright green. And when at dusk, the sun has withdrawn its light and it's fading, what happens to the green? It seems dull, like it is right now. What happens at midnight when we look outside and there is no sun? It's black, The point I want to make is, the leaf has no color of its own, and it is at the mercy of the light and the intensity of the light falling on it. And what I want to share is now that, like that leaf, our life works in a very similar fashion. We in ourselves have the divine light, this redeeming light, even right now. Yoganandaji in fact said that the physical sun, the light of the physical sun, he said that is a reflection of the light that is seen at the spiritual eye, not the other way around. So he said this light that you see is 100,000 times more brighter than the light you see outside. But the light that is within us and our life outside, the people we meet, the circumstances we encounter, the situations we have, all of those are like those leaves that have no color of their own. If your life right now has taken a shade that you don't like, it's dull, then realize something. That those people, that those circumstances can be improved if you increase and shine your light on them. That light is within us. But why does life take a dull shade? Why do some people to us seem, oh, he's negative, or he's foolish, or he's inharmonious? Why does it seem that way? It relates to something Jayaji was saying last time. Because maybe, perhaps, think about this. Maybe the light that we're shining on that person is not bright enough. Maybe the light, maybe we are withholding some of the light from falling on that person. Just like the leaf has no fault. When bright light falls on it, it seems bright, it seems beautiful, it seems uplifting. And in the same way, in our lives, when we look at people and we say, oh, this person, no, analyze now going forward. Is it because the light within me, I am withholding it perhaps from this person? And how do we withhold light from a person? By withholding our sympathies from them. Maybe we are withholding our kindness from them, maybe our love from them. And to the degree we do that, they reflect that back to us, just like that leaf, which reflects the sunlight. But if we were to say, and if this was not true, then the same person, you think he's negative, he's this, that, and the other thing, but maybe to his own mother, he's a saint. How is that possible? Because maybe she's beaming, projecting a different kind of light on that person, you see? So, as we go through life now, when we look outside ourselves and we find faults in things, in people, in circumstances, stop and ask yourself, am I beaming my light fully on this person? Because he's just going to reflect what I give him. If I shine it very brightly with all my heart, then he will seem, like someone was saying, their best potential will come out because you will draw that, they will reflect that. But if we don't, then they will seem dull, they will seem indifferent, they will seem all the things that we think people are. And again, to go back to the sun, to finish this analogy, does the sun, when every morning it comes out, does it say, okay, today I will not shine on Serbia, and that house over there I don't like, so that rooftop I'll miss, and this kid, he's been really, really naughty, so I'll put a cloud over him? No, the sun doesn't do that. What does the sun do? The sun is impartial. It falls on anything that is under it and will receive that light. And so remember this also, when dealing with people, when dealing with circumstances, that are you being impartial towards certain people? Maybe that is making them look dull. Or are you giving too much light to another person? And what is this in yoga? Likes and dislikes. Shining my light more on this, withdrawing my light from this. And so let's think about this when we go through our lives, friends, because that light we were talking about is not just seen in meditation, that is nice, but that light should have the power to ultimately change our lives in our daily interactions. And it can do so if we apply it in this manner. Remember always, everything outside has no color. You can quote me on that, I might get into trouble, but nothing has any color. You have the power to determine what color it has and what shade it takes, whether it's dull, whether it's bright, whether it's lackluster, and you yourself have the power to change that shade. I want to end by reading something that was written by a man, his name was Frank Laubach, and he was a modern mystic. And Christ would speak to him. He was he would converse with Christ. And these are Christ's words. Child, just as the rice needs the sunshine every day and could not grow if it had sun only once a week or 1 hour a day, so you need me all day of every day. People over all the world are withering because they are open toward God only rarely. Remember those words. That just like the sun, the rice fields, they need it every day. We too need God every day and every moment of our lives. And when we have that, then it is our responsibility further to shine that light on others and change our life for the better. Thank you. Joy to you.